A very warm Auckland welcome to the Get in Shape program. Nō mai, haere mai. A very warm welcome indeed. It's fantastic to see such a monster crowd. I got to say, on behalf of the FMA, MB, Financial Advice New Zealand and the FSC, we started this journey 3 years ago, and when we started to think about what is the message we wanted to communicate this year, we came up with this notion of Get in Shape. For those of you who were in this room last year and previous years, we were talking about the idea of navigating change. The world was changing, is changing. This year is very much about getting in shape. It's about, hopefully most people in this room and outside of this room have made decisions about how you want to be positioned, what kind of business model do you want to run, what kind of client base do you want to deal with. And so that's the Get in Shape message for today. And similarly to last year, we've got a very strong lineup. In panel one, you're going to hear from the regulators. It is Q&A opportunity. We were joined yesterday in Wellington by Minister Whāwhoi. We're going to hear from him in just a moment. But a couple of new additions for this year, which absolutely delighted at, is that we're joined by a panel of advisors that Russell Hutchinson will facilitate, because there are many people in this room who have and are willing and keen to share about the key questions facing their business. And that in Wellington was absolutely fantastic. We're then going to have a bit of a morning tea. After morning tea, we're going to come back and we're going to go from local and specific to a much more global outlook. And we're going to be joined by a fantastic panel of international speakers who work and play and have worked and played in global markets, particularly in financial advice, and we're in for a treat there. What we'll then do is we will break for some lunch. The masterclass turn-up rate is huge. We thought it might be 30% of people would stick around for the masterclass, more like 80%. So we're going to have a little lunch, or a big little lunch, and then we're going to have a masterclass that Katrina and Andrew and Angus are going to facilitate. And again, in Wellington, that was absolutely fantastic. So that's what the run's going to look like. Without further ado, delighted to welcome Rob Flannagan, who is the Chair of the Financial Services Council, to extend his own welcome. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Richard. And welcome to you all. Certainly a lot of eyes out there from this side of the desk, so it's a really great turnout. So welcome to Minister Whāwhoi, who will be joining us on video, the team from FMA, MIMBI, Financial Advice New Zealand, and of course all of you delegates. This is a huge turnout, as you can see, and it's a great signal from the sector that we're prepared to engage for 2020. 2019 was a pretty tough year with the Financial Services Legislation Amendments Act, which is a bit of a mouthful. The Conduct and Culture Review, the Royal Commission impacts, all of these have been very significant. And as a sector, we're trying very hard to respond. We want to work closely with the regulators and the government, as we're all trying to achieve the same outcomes: a wealthier, healthier New Zealand, where financial services sector is a trusted partner for the community's aspirations. In this context, I want to thank the FMA and the MIMBI team for their work, their focus and engagement. We know it's not easy, but in the end, the relationship between the lawmakers, the regulators and the industry are critical to ensure that we best serve the New Zealand community. So thank you all. And perhaps more importantly, to the advice community. It is important that we come together and to learn and share. We know, and the statistics support this, that the consumers feel more confident when they get good advice, and you in the room are key to that process. Consumers that do get good professional advice are more confident about their future and are doing things about building and managing and growing their wealth. And that's because of the work that you guys do in this, or you guys and girls do in this room. So thank you for investing your time today. It's an important milestone, I think, and really appreciate all of you being here today. So hand back to Richard.
I think that deserves a round of applause. Thank you, Rob. Very briefly before Tricia and her panel come up, if you are sitting in an advisor practice, a dealer group, a legal firm and thinking, oh my God, it feels like it was busy last year, this gives you a sense, and this isn't complete, this is now a little out of date, this gives you a sense of the raft of stuff that came at the sector. Some really important, some very important, some important but perhaps a little less important, but that's stuff we collectively have to get our heads around. So when you're working with your commercial partners and your product companies as suppliers, understand that a lot of this stuff is part of their world as well. But these are the stats, right? This is the great opportunity for us as a sector to actually make a difference to New Zealand. On the left-hand side, you've got what's happening in KiwiSaver. And KiwiSaver is going to be this great engine room of growth. It is already. There's well over $60 billion of total assets under management. In the last 3 years, that's grown from the mid-40s. Where, for those on the investment side, you feel this J-curve just starting to pick up, this sense of momentum, where the compounding effect of money starts to really drive outcomes. And whilst most people in New Zealand, we know from the research, have their wealth in property or in their businesses, an average size of around 20 grand in KiwiSaver isn't what you call the deal breaker, but you can see that for our kids' generation, that's going to be a substantial amount of money. So KiwiSaver is going to be a great driver for advice, it's going to be a great driver for opportunity, great driver for innovation, and making sure that we've got the settings right around contribution amounts and age of retirement and how does NZ Super fit together, all really important conversations to have. On the right-hand side, you've got the state of the insurance marketplace, which I've got to say has been flat now for a little while. So that's our challenge, and that's for the risk advisors and the life companies in the room. How do we get more New Zealanders to think not only about risk, but actually about how do you offset that, how do you manage that? That'll be a conversation we'll have a little later on. So that's a bit of a scene setter. If you think about the world of expertise that we provide in this room, we provide advice on people's lives and livelihoods and their futures and their families, and the gateway often is through product sets that are solutions. But the advice conversation is ultimately what people are valuing, and we're going to hear a lot more about that in both panel 1, 2 and then 3.